All right, here we go.
It's dink. Because it's doink and dink.
Oh, okay.
That was a wrestling deal.
It was.
Yeah.
Do not take this. Do not take our doink word away from us.
Who's calling me about?
Start dinking around
I'm
over
start
there.
dinking around, you guys.
What's up, dink doink? You done dinking around over there?
Quit dinking around. We're live.
Hey!
How's it going, everybody?
Swell.
Busy.
We're back for more Art Damaged.
Busy.
How's everyone's summer? Back to school season?
It's fall now. I willed it, and it happened.
Almost. It's
Well,
almost there.
It's unseasonably warm for fall.
we can't.
It's true. Fall, Josh.
Once pumpkin season starts, I think that
It's fall.
I think
It's
that's
fall.
officially.
Official.
It is fall.
Once you can grab some pumpkin spice at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Cold
Actually,
brew.
I mean, technically,
Yeah.
it's Christmas season now.
Oh, fuck.
Technically,
I quit.
It's not summer anymore, so who gives a fuck?
yeah, it's not.
Yeah, who gives a fuck? I'm Josh Ruff at joshruff.com on all the things. www.joshruff.com. We're here at Renaissance Studios at RS Tattoo NY on Instagram.
Hi, everyone. Reggie Inks here. You can find me at Reggie Inks, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Oh, my Patreon. For $1 a month, you could give me $1.
Sick deal.
Zach Pedley here, owner of the North Brewery. You can find us at northbrewery.com or Facebook or Instagram. Just search North Brewery. I'm also on my own private stuff, which is Chomp88 on TikTok. Kind of a big thing over there. And then Instagram, I like my beers ratchet.
Google them.
Google me.
I'm Christina Maslar. Find me at Christina_Maslar on Instagram. Christina Maslar on Facebook. Christina Maslar in real life, too. I go by that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can call me
We can do
Christina
stuff
Maslar.
in real life. I forgot about that. It's been so long.
What is real life?
I'm not ready for that existential rabbit hole.
We can look at ourselves on the TV right now, so it's not real.
I'm on the TV.
BamBurnsThings.com.
There we go.
Hey, there we go. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about an art icon today, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Very important artist, at least in our generation, for
Yeah.
sure. We're going to talk about Bob Ross.
I have a theory that people that grew up with PBS that were latchkey kids are more in tune with people's emotions because they were raised by Mr. Rogers and Bob Ross
Yes.
and LeVar
Yeah,
Burton.
I think
Yes,
you're right.
You're right.
Yeah, Reading Rainbow, man.
Yeah, they were all
what-
our dads.
What's a latchkey kid?
It's basically your parents are at work or school, so you had to come home and lock the door and give yourself lunch.
Yeah. So the
and
kid
they
who
came
gets
home for supper.
the
Right.
kid who rides the second grader who rides the bus home from school
Yeah.
lets themselves in.
Well, we
Doug.
were just poor. That's why I watched PBS.
Yeah, public access, man.
We were just poor. So
Can you imagine if instead of LeVar Burton, it was like Samuel L. Jackson that did Reading Rainbow?
Shut the fuck up.
It's
That'd be
Dragonona, motherfuckers.
Yeah, anyway, we're talking about
take a fucking nap.
we're talking about Bob Ross today because there's a very controversial documentary that just came out on Netflix about his empire after his death.
It's depressing as fuck, and you
Yeah.
should watch it.
We'll get into. Here's the man himself. In
Hi,
case you don't
Mr.
know who we're
Ross.
talking about, everybody knows who Bob Ross is.
Bob Ross with that Versace chain.
Just a little bit of chest hair sticking out.
He's looking like a straight G in this photo.
Yeah.
He really
That's how he
is.
caught all the moms.
Yeah, so everyone always thinks that he's like this straight laced, super nice.
Tell us about him.
He was a slut.
He tried to seduce your moms.
Yeah.
He,
Well, to start, so he was born October 29th,
Drink to Bob
1942
Ross.
in Daytona, Florida. So he is officially a Florida man.
Ooh, that explains a lot.
When he was in high school, he dropped out of school in grade 9, so he never actually graduated.
Oh, really?
Yep. And finally found out that his oldest son was actually born not long after that. So he had an illegitimate son when he was a teenager.
Oh, wow.
But the
Does this kid have a name or is it not important?
Filbert number 9.
Fan brush number 10.
as far as I'm aware, I believe that's the
nice.
as far as I'm aware, I believe that's the son that they talk about at the end of the documentary,
Okay.
the stepbrother.
You kind of see him with Steve talking sometimes, but I didn't catch his name, and I feel terrible.
Yeah. but it kind of seems like they wanted it that
There's
way.
a lot to unpack in that documentary.
Yeah.
We'll
There
try and
is.
do that today.
Yeah. So 1961, when he turned 18, he enrolled in the U.S. Air Force as a medical records tech. Traveled all over and ended up achieving rank of first sergeant and moved to Alaska, where he was stationed there for years. And at this point, that's when he started to like get bored, I guess, with the Air Force. So he started painting on.
Yeah, he wasn't really psyched on the whole military thing.
Yeah, so he used to get the old gold pans, like the tins that the gold miners would use.
Yeah.
And he would take those and he would paint his little scenes on those.
Yeah, they show some of those in that doc, I think.
His son has them now, but
Yeah.
that's actually how he got famous or how he learned to paint originally. So 1965 he got married to Vivian Ross, and together they had one kid, Steve. I couldn't find a birth year for him though. Oh well, he was born too.
Yeah.
All right.
Steve Ross.
He's a very big part of this documentary.
Yeah. So not a lot happens over that next like decade, but in 1977, him and Vivian Ross, his wife, end up divorced because she claims infidelity.
On a side note, I love her part in the documentary where she's like, "I'm Vivian Ross," and then you never see her again.
Yeah, she had that like old lady like honeycomb. Like
Yeah,
that's
she had like,
I'm Vivian
yeah, I'm Vivian Ross, and
What
then
do
they
you
showed
call
a
me?
picture of her
Vicky Ross.
looking
think
like
she just
Dolly
had-
Parton, and then she never popped up again.
Do you think she just had nothing good to say about Bob Ross?
Probably.
That's why
not.
they cut all that
They're
shit
just
out.
like, we can't air any of this.
He wouldn't
Well,
come
it was
home.
the 60s, so there was a lot of drinking. I don't really remember everything straight. And they're like, great, we cannot use any of that.
Yeah, so they divorced in 1977, and then a few months later, he married a woman named Jane.
a few months later.
Yeah, within the
Because
same
they
year.
met in the military.
Oh.
Yeah, I think
So
they
he
were
must have
hooking up
been,
back then.
giving her the old
Yeah.
filbert here and there.
The Alaskan wood.
Nice.
Laying some happy little trees.
Talking about secret bushes.
Yeah, so I'm just going to give a quick, like, brief rundown. So, after 20 years in 1981, he decided to leave the military and decided to retire. And at that point, he was like, I really want to expand on this whole painting thing. So he told his wife at the time, he's like, I'm going to give it 1 year. At the end of the year, if we're piss broke, then I'll get a real job. But if not, then I get to continue doing this. And she was like,
That's pretty cool.
yeah. So she was like, okay, cool. So she took Steve, and she and Steve moved to Florida. So Steve lived with a stepmom. She didn't even get to live with Vivian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what the fuck was Vivian into? I want to see the cutting room floor Vivian footage.
And the funny part is, I never actually heard who the infidelity was on why the divorce happened. It just says the divorce happened because
I mean,
of
if he
infidelity.
married her a few months later, one could make a
Probably
assumption
it's-
that it had something to do with Jane
that
Ross.
Vivian was doing porn.
In the 60s?
I mean,
Yeah,
What's the weirdest porn you've ever watched? I mean,
that's true.
But it wasn't
she's
made in
Florida
the
woman.
60s. The rare breed of Alaskan
All right,
Florida
so
woman.
so they end up back. So he ends up back in Florida. But this is when Bob kind of takes off, and Bob decides to go. And
is this before Bill Alexander or?
This is when he meets up with Bill Alexander.
Okay.
So Wilhelm Bill Alexander.
Insert someone do an impersonation of Bill
This guy.
Alexander if people don't know.
Reggie.
This is the German painter who will show you how to paint from the depths of your soul.
He was about as charming as that. So Wilhelm Alexander was born in Prussia, and his family escaped from Prussia during World War I. And then in World War II, he was drafted into the Wehrmacht, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing very wrong, but basically he was a Nazi. And then he got captured by the Allies after a few years of being a Nazi and taken to someplace in Europe, where at that point while he was a POW, he began to paint the Allied troops officers' wives so they can mail paintings home. And they realized, like, hey, you're actually not that terrible of a person. So he agreed to join the Allies and fight on their side, and then ended up moving to America.
All right.
So basically,
An
once
unwilling Nazi.
yeah,
painter?
pretty much, yeah. So after that, he then came to the U.S., where he perfected the wet on wet technique, and he actually goes through and describes his technique exactly, and it is the exact same technique that Bob later uses.
Uh-huh.
So it's the liquid white, the base that gives it that like blend.
Yeah, wet into wet. You're laying like a coat of wet paint down and painting directly into that.
Yep.
And the colors mix that way.
Yep.
You know,
But did he yell it at you instead?
Pretty much, yeah.
can I crack a joke here?
Well,
Do it.
yeah.
You know what Bob Ross used to say when he would spurt? Alla prima!
Yeah.
I think you broke him.
And that's the history of Bob Ross. No, so Bill Alexander, he pitched this show to PBS, and they created in 1974 a painting show called The Magic of Painting. It aired.
This was Bill Alexander's show.
Yes. Yep, and it aired from 1974 to 1982. During that time, Bill Alexander started his own company, which was making paints, which was making painting workshops, books, all these things. And he agreed to bring Bob in if Bob would learn his techniques, and then Bob would go out as a traveling
Salesman.
art instructor.
Yeah.
So that's why he ditched his kid and second wife in Florida so he could go on tour and
Work on
Provide.
that third wife.
Yeah.
tame some strange.
Yeah. Some Hobby Lobby strange.
So, yeah, in 1982, Wilhelm's show goes off the air, and almost immediately after, Bob's show comes out, The Joy of Painting, which aired between 1983 and 1994 with 403 episodes.
Cool. Let's look at some of his art.
Which
I
apparently
mean, everybody knows what a Bob Ross painting looks like.
Yeah.
There's some mountains. There's some trees. Usually a lake.
Yeah.
Some happy little clouds.
Happy little trees.
Trees and clouds, whatever.
See, this one almost looks inverted.
Oh, you
I
mean
think-
the contrast, the color?
The dark clouds and
It's a lot of liquid white in this one.
Yeah.
So they said that he called it The Joy of Painting because it was around the same time The Joy of Sex came out. And then he started to try to woo your moms by talking real slow, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ASMR was born.
We've got a guy coming in at the brewery who's doing a show, I think in November, who we call the mom fucker. Or the aunt fucker.
I thought it was ant fucker.
Both. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think like this guy's work, he's a pretty decent artist.
How is your aunt doing?
He's doing good.
Shut the fuck.
How do you think we know the title?
Oh, God.
He's like, oh my God.
you never realized
Oh,
this?
no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Are you serious?
There's a whole backstory to this. Yeah.
Yeah. And his I could see his calming nature, reminiscent of Bob Ross's calming nature. I could see why Bob Ross fucked moms.
Yeah.
Hard.
Allegedly. So there's a
Allegedly.
lot of alleged things going on.
Well, the whole thing was that when he was in the military, because he was a sergeant, he was basically like the highest of command.
Yeah.
So anytime anyone was in trouble, they had to go see him. And he said that for like 15 years, his entire role was just to like scream and belittle people. So when he got
all that out of his system in the military.
he didn't even get it out. What he said was after that, he vowed he would never yell at another human being again.
Yeah.
And that's why he just,
Calm.
yeah.
What a
just-
guy.
this is
I
what-
kind of
this is my
wish
life
that
now.
at the end of every episode, he'd be like, this is dedicated to Barbara. You know who you are. And then would just name a different
woman each time.
each time. Or be like, Timmy's mom.
Could you imagine like him,
Hey, Timmy, Daddy's
his
gonna come
sex
home
noises
soon.
or his dirty talk in bed?
Let's
Oh,
not
that's nice.
do that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, tickle the balls.
All right, let's look at another painting here
I'm gonna lay down some deep
before we
strokes.
tarnish the memory of Bob Ross.
I mean, Bob Ross's name has been tarnished quite a bit recently.
This is another really nice, beautiful painting.
Yeah, it looks just like the last one, except the snow's all melted.
What do you think's in the lake there?
Probably
Dead
some
bodies.
bodies.
All the secrets.
Christ.
Blood.
These aren't Bill Alexander's. They're Bob Ross's.
Oh,
Then there's a sweet fantasy sword under there.
where are the Nazis?
Again,
In the
that's-
bushes, waiting for you to
Ross.
emerge with
It's a Ross,
magical
not an
stones.
Alexander.
I love how that white, that liquid white, really makes, like, it's a real good cheat.
I wouldn't say it's a cheat; it's just a technique.
Technique.
you know.
The reflection on the water.
Which-
Albeit his technique is not like well sought after by most painters. You
Right.
know?
Right.
Like,
And years later, after in 1991, Wilhelm Alexander gave like one of his last interviews, and they're like, "What are your thoughts on Bob Ross?" And by then, like the Bob Ross company had come out and like all this stuff, and he just went on like a tirade of how much he hated Bob Ross. Bob Ross stole everything from him. He's like, "I was the inventor of the wet on wet technique."
I wouldn't
like,
say
all
that.
that stuff. To which then
Pretty sure other painters did well.
yeah,
on
yeah.
Wet.
To which then they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you were born in the 1500s because Caravaggio also did this." So,
Right.
yeah,
Caravaggio burn.
probably not trying to paint like a complete painting in a half an hour. You know.
yeah. Well,
Like-
that's the funny part is that Bob said that the first time he ever saw Bill Alexander, like his show, he used to paint like this all the time, but it would take him days at a time. And he's like, it's the first time he got angry after he was in the military because he couldn't paint that fast like Bill Alexander could.
Oh, he
Oh, wow.
figured it out. How many paintings do you think Bob did? It's thousands, right?
Yeah, he did 2 per episode.
I thought it was 3 per episode.
3 per
3 per
Episode?
episode. Yeah. So, well, they estimate it's probably over 10,000.
It's a lot of paintings.
Do you
Okay,
think any of us-
400 episodes by 3.
Yep. So it's
Would be-
1,200.
That means
1,209 minimum right
just
there.
for the show.
Just
Yeah.
for the show.
Regardless
Yeah.
of painting demos.
Yep.
When we travel the countryside, throwing his dick around.
What, like, are any of his paintings valued really, really high and have sold?
They've-
We'll
Never
get to that
sold.
later. That's a very big part of this
Jumping the-
documentary.
Kind of and no, kind of yes.
Okay, all right.
Do you think there's like a black market? Like on the dark web? there's
Kind
a
of
Bob
yes, kind
Ross
of no.
corner?
Yes.
I think it. Well, we should probably talk about this later after we get into the doc.
Because Vice did that quick blurb where they just went to the Bob Ross Inc. headquarters and they
Yeah.
had all his shit in like
That was
back
New York,
room.
New York Times, yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring that up later too.
There's been a few internet videos like, where are all the OG Bob Rosses?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that pretty much wraps up like
His story.
the overall
The bullet
Oh.
points for the history test.
Jane passes away in 1993. And then he marries his nurse Linda Brown in 1995, 2 months
It's
before.
also a big part of this doc.
Yep, 2 months before he passes away from lymphoma.
Yeah, that was like the last act of the documentary. They were like,
Yeah.
married his nurse so that they wouldn't be able to. He had somebody fighting for the rights to his shit.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the documentary that's out now. Bob Ross, Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed, which makes several allegations about the legacy of Bob Ross and the people who helped him start his show, basically.
It was definitely, I mean, I was happy when I watched it. It was really good. It was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
My question is, how old was what's her name? Kowalski, Annette.
Annette Kowalski.
And
When they first met, because she looks 70 there, and now she looks like a really rough 70.
Yeah, well, no, she looks like 100. If you watch that Vice thing that Reggie was talking
Yeah,
about, like,
yeah.
she looks fucking like she's lost 100 pounds from this photo right here.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I
First, let's talk about who these two people are, because
Right.
these are the two people that helped him start his TV show, The Joy of Painting.
They
Right.
helped him get funding so he could break away from Bill.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
start his own
Yeah.
shit.
I feel like
Yeah.
at first
But
this was
also, he lived with them?
Yes.
Yeah, it got
yeah.
weird. It got
Yep.
weird.
Yes.
So
Yep.
him,
Yep.
him, Jane, the Kowalskis, and Steven and their 4 children all moved into one house together.
Let me ask you this. You think he was fucking her?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
it
an
says it
allegation
in
made
the
by his son,
documentary.
Yeah.
Steven, in that documentary.
And I said to her, I was like, at no point, I was like, he's always weird with the way he phrases it because he keeps introducing her not as my business partner, but just this
My
is my partner.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
She's like, oh, I like that. I want to be Bob's partner.
yeah.
You think the dude was into cuckolding?
I kind of.
Dude, I don't
one-
buy that part because he was in the fucking CIA, dude.
Yeah, but that means he
He
likes
was
spying on people. So
Yes.
he wants to sit in the closet and watch
Yes.
Maybe that's his fetish.
Or was he recording it and using it as blackmail?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh,
Lamp.
fuck.
When it's an artist, you call it lamp blackmail.
Black. That's an artist joke
So-
right there.
Because at first, this was everyone was for this relationship, like for the union of these people. Like it wasn't anything with bad
Yeah,
intent.
they made his TV show happen, basically. You
Yeah.
know? Like, that's how The Joy of Painting came to be. That's how we all grew up watching this shit on PBS. Like, I didn't know about any of this other dark side of this show and, like, how it happened.
Do you think that apartment, when they weren't recording The Joy of Painting, it was just like their bang pad? Because they didn't have a studio. They just had an apartment with a sheet as a curtain.
Could you imagine going to a bar in the 80s and just being like, hey, I got like a TV studio in my basement? And they're like, what? You do?
Wait, is that where they filmed it? They filmed it at
They
the
filmed
house?
it in a... No, they
Not
had a
that house.
separate apartment for it.
No,
Yeah.
it was actually a PBS studio, but at the time PBS didn't have a ton of money. So what PBS was doing is they were just buying random homes around the United States and just turning them into studios. That's why when you walk into the house there, they were like, yeah, he stood right
So
here on the
was
axe.
Mr. Rogers' house, like, also a house that they bought?
That was a set, but I don't know where the set was. That might have been in another house. But that's why when he was painting, it was just a black backdrop because they didn't want to show the house.
On a side note, did you watch...
backdrop, not to show.
Did you watch the newer
So you don't
season
see
of
the
Creep
shower.
Show where they have the PBS knockoff with a knockoff of Bob Ross? It's like, I think, a Sam Raimi one.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and Ted Raimi's in it, and they
Yeah.
end up the QVC auction of the Necronomicon or some
Yes.
shit, and then everything goes haywire.
And Bob Ross is the one that saves the day, or the
yeah,
pretend
the
Bob
painter
Ross.
dude. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty good. But here's another photo of Bob and Annette Kowalski.
This is where Bob is wearing a wig, I think, right?
I don't think quite yet.
Because I'm assuming this is where he gets sick. Like he's right around the age. What did he die from?
Lymphoma.
Yeah.
Lymphoma.
Yeah.
Not too long after his second wife, right?
2 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
She just looks like a grandma that's real proud of her nephew or something.
She's
you know?
very proud.
Very proud.
Yeah.
Where do you think that hand is? Her hand.
And a card giving him $5 for his birthday.
With some
Three.
Werther's candies.
No, the strawberry one.
Oh, the strawberry ones. Oh,
She's out.
Fuck yes.
It's Werther's.
God damn those They'll take out a cap on your tooth.
Got to be careful with them hard candies.
Oh, they pop.
Those old people got dentures, so they ain't
Yeah.
got to worry about that.
They don't.
So the funny part about his hair, though, is that when he was a kid, he actually had like really nice, like he was a handsome looking.
Yeah,
dude.
he hated the fro, didn't he?
So
But he just kept it because people liked it.
Well, that was the thing is when he left the military because they had no money, it was cheaper for him to go once like every like 8 or 9 months to a hairdresser and
Get a
just get a
perm.
perm. So he did that for the first like 2 or 3 years. And then at that point, he got so famous that everyone was like, dude, the fro. And he was like, well, fuck.
No, he's
and
stuck
the
with
producers were like, joke's on you. It's not going anywhere.
It's not going. Hey, you're keeping that.
My gimmick was I was going to do a new hairstyle every season. Next month was going to be pompadours.
He had one of those at one point. It was a super sweet pompadour.
That's
All
his
right,
son.
this is his son, Steve Ross. He is basically the main person they interview in this doc. Like,
I want his hair.
This is 80s. This is peak 80s.
yeah.
Did you ever see the episode of Workaholics where Blake thinks that woman has a picture of him and it's
looks
just
like
the
Blake.
dog?
Oh my
Yeah.
That's the hair. It reminds me of
Yeah,
that
exactly.
fucking dog's hair.
But like this
feel
whole
like-
documentary is like just all allegations of like how the company screwed Steve over, more or less.
Yeah, because he should have been the heir. Because I wondered those, because he still has, like we talked about earlier, the tins that he painted on.
Yeah.
His father painted on. And since the Kowalskis are the only people that can validate if it's a Bob Ross painting or not,
According to them.
according to them,
Yeah.
Right.
if they're the only ones that can validate, because the problem is, that as of right now, until they die, and then we're like 50 years later, or 60 years later, then those paintings of his probably worth a fortune.
I mean, I would imagine any of his paintings would be worth a fortune at this point.
But remember that one dude that worked for them said that he saw people making copies
Yeah.
and writing Ross. So I wonder how many of those paintings might be reproductions.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if they were making reproductions and putting out more books
Mark
saying that they were
Landis is
Bob
just sitting
Ross.
somewhere going, good.
Call back to episode 2, Mark Landis. Check it out.
I think that was their plan. The Kowalski's plan was, let's just get a group of people that can paint Bob Ross stuff, and let's flood everything so the paintings are not more valuable than the actual supplies.
Yeah. Or they could be like, oh, unreleased book from Bob Ross. And
Well-
it's just a bunch of other fucking people's paintings.
Yeah.
Like Reggie was saying earlier, that Vice did that little special on where are all the Bob Ross paintings like a couple of years ago, like before this documentary came out, and they're all just packed away in boxes,
Yeah.
not even like stored properly for artwork.
Yeah.
in
It always threw me off,
Bob
too.
Ross Incorporated headquarters.
Yeah.
But she was just like, yeah, he always gave me one. And I'm like, he gave you one and not his kid or his wife?
Well,
Yeah.
they even say in the documentary, the people who work at the headquarters, he was like, well, is that a Bob Ross behind you? And he goes, from what I've told, it's a Bob Ross. Like he says that at the end.
That's
He's like,
Walt Kowalski. that
yeah, he's
says
like,
that.
from what I've told, it's a Bob Ross, so it's a Bob Ross. That's like fucked up.
Yeah. Allegedly, it's a Bob Ross.
Allegedly. Yeah, I think he used the word. Allegedly, it's a Bob Ross, but we've certified that it is a Bob Ross.
Allegedly, it's an original Bob Ross.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah.
Well, dude, it's like
Circumvent the law.
it's so easy to learn how to paint like him if you just watch his videos, and like, I mean, he literally does these in like half an hour.
Yeah.
Like
I think
with that technique.
Well, he's got 400 episodes, means he's got 200 hours worth of content out there.
Yeah,
you wanted
but-
to figure out how to paint like Bob Ross. All the resources are available to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to paint like Bob Ross, I would say.
I think I learned how to paint from Bob Ross.
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
fuck.
That was my first like. But yeah, what amazed me about this, like, I never really thought about when I was watching this growing up, or even like months ago, like I rewatched some of the episodes. I never really focused too much on like this is all 100% real time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I always thought like, oh, he must be like time lapse, he's painting a little bit and now
Or
now
edit
the-
down. You
right,
know,
that
yeah.
sort of thing. And then I watched the documentary, and no, he's literally like, if you look, he does one of the paintings and then he sets it aside and he puts it right above the clock. And then they wait for it to get to 12, and as soon as that's at 12, then he starts painting again. He times every painting, and every painting is 26 minutes.
Jesus.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had to do it that way. Like, he would
Yeah.
pick the best one to be that episode,
Yeah.
Do you think that any of you could paint that fast right now to do a quality of a painting of him?
To do that kind of style, I think, with enough practice, you could.
Right.
Enough practice, but I couldn't sit down right now.
Right. Like
and
it
do
would take you what, like an hour, maybe 2 hours to paint a Bob Ross painting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's all just very, like, impressionistic kind of brushstrokes, and, like, using a palette knife a lot to
Yeah.
make the mountains and shit. Like, he's got a formula to everything. that
The
he does.
wood on the
Yeah.
cabinet. We're gonna take a little brown in that palette knife, and we're gonna make a little. Oh, look! We're gonna give that cabin a little chimney too. That's so nice, isn't it? See that cabin? That's where I take your mom out for fun.
And
I'm
Red
pretty
Wood-
sure none of his paintings had cabins, though. I think
Oh,
you're
yeah.
thinking of.
No,
Yeah, yeah,
they did.
yeah.
Yeah. And,
Well,
and right above the
Not a
little-
lot, though, because he
Right.
hated people. Like, he didn't want any people in his painting.
But right above the chimney, he always added a little bit of smoke because maybe
Yeah.
somebody was home.
Maybe somebody was
okay.
inside warming themselves.
By the fire
like those
after he
two
banged them
broken
on the bearskin rug.
We're really making Bob Ross sound like a
Sexual deviant.
I mean, the episode did start off with me calling him a slut. So, I mean,
If he was alive today, he probably would have a good laugh with us and say, "Yeah, I fucked." Like
If he was
10,000
alive
women."
I'm convinced he would have done
got
a centerfold for Playgirl.
Oh, definitely.
He's
Why?
got Gene Simmons numbers under his belt.
Oh, jeez.
easily.
What was it like? Will Chamberlain came out, or one of those basketball players came out and said like that their number was 10,000 women.
Yeah, that's
like
Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah,
or
I
something.
think like Bob Ross could probably come out and be like, "I got that beat times 3" type of thing.
I banged all your moms.
I banged all your moms. Just so you know.
What I want you to do is cut a tree in half and count the circles. Times that by 3.
Times that by 3.
But like a really big old tree. Nice big happy tree.
Yeah.
All right, so here's Stephen Ross today.
He's painting now. He's teaching.
Yeah.
He's teaching classes. So he can't use the Ross last name or use any likeness of his father, right?
Right.
So he can't
Allegedly.
allegedly. So he can't come out and say, "I'm the son of Bob Ross and I'm painting." Or can he do that?
I don't know. Can he find a loophole and get like Diana Ross to adopt him?
I think he can use his name because there was a statement that, like, in response to this documentary that the Bob Ross company put out, which says a lot of contrary evidence to what's in this documentary. Because, like, I was very skeptical about this whole thing
Right.
when I first heard about it. Because, like, they put the statement out immediately. It's like, we've never stopped him from doing anything. We haven't talked to him in 20 years. The first we heard from him was this lawsuit that he brought against the company. So I don't know, playing devil's advocate here, like,
Sure. I mean that could be true. There could be gray on both sides.
Yes.
Right. There, like when they did Making a Murderer. Right. There was a lot of gray. area.
any of these documentaries that come out now are like very skewed in one
Yeah.
direction thing.
Like they could be like, well, he hasn't reached out till now, and now we're like, the Kowalskis could be like, yeah, well, actually,
Yeah.
we want him to paint. We want to do a Joy of Painting too, and use him to start painting again. They
Well,
could easily do that.
yeah, well, whoever made the Netflix thing, like, apparently they reached out to Bob Ross Incorporated and it's like, hey, we're making a documentary, but they never revealed anything about what they were going to talk about in the documentary. And the company, like, I guess never agreed to talk to them about it.
Still blew
So
it
there's
off.
like no rebuttal to any
They
of this
declined.
stuff.
They said we will not be contributing it.
Yeah.
And then after the documentary was made, at the end of the documentary, they come out and state they've reached back out and claimed that a lot of these claims that the documentary is claiming is untrue.
Yeah.
So the whole issue with it is, though, because I was reading, trying to like break down like why it all happened the way it happened, and legally the Kowalskis didn't do anything wrong in any of this. Morally, yes, but legally, none of it. So the agreement that they signed when they incorporated the business is that there would be 4 owners. They would each own 25%, and it would be Bob, Jane, Walt, and Annette.
Yeah.
And
the
if-
Kowalskis and the Rosses,
Right.
Bob and Jane.
Right. And if anything were to happen to any of them, then at that point, those shares would be divvied up between the 3 remaining people.
Yeah.
So, and Bob signed off on that. Jane signed off on that. So technically, they did absolutely nothing wrong. It was just a shitty.
Yeah, because then Jane died,
Deal.
and then
So all of a sudden,
basically when she died, they lost a vote in the future of the company.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So now he technically owned 33.33% of the company.
Yeah.
But
The Kowalskis own the majority of
66.
it.
Yeah.
When she died, that doesn't make so. Wouldn't his shares go up? Like it would go back to him when she
but
died.
it would just go up a third of it because they got a third of it as well.
right.
Oh,
So then it's 2 against
Instead
1.
of 4 people, it's now 3.
right.
So the agreement is the 5 of us do this podcast. If one of us
Oh.
leaves the podcast, I can't claim rights to it. The rights to it goes to the 4 of
Well,
you.
it depends on what they had set up
That-
prior.
that-
Yeah,
that's
no,
what
they
the
didn't have it
agreement
because. Yeah, if 5 of us owned all of this, right, and I say I'm out, I'm not doing this anymore,
Right.
then you would divvy it up. Unless I was like,
your 20%
before
would be divided by
right.
4.
Even though I don't have any of that, like it would say like if I were to buy in or whatever, it would say
Right.
when I go out, I have the option to sell to whoever I want.
And none
The
of that
option would go to you guys first, and then
none of that was in there.
Right.
It was straight up the agreement was that that 25% would be divided 3 ways. So the Kowalskis ended up with owning 66.6% of the company.
Absolutely.
So that's why at the last minute, Bob marries
Someone else.
Linda, trying to bring her in as.
So when he died,
Linda
he's got-
was his nurse,
Yeah,
like his
right.
hospice nurse,
Right,
more or less.
but that
right?
still wouldn't have helped him though, because when he
Because of that agreement.
but
Right.
she's there to fight for his vote after
Yeah.
he's dead.
Right.
So
she still
at
technically
least,
has
like,
no
trying to
say.
fight
Didn't
for the
that
kid
like
to get
his
that
shares get
30%.
delegated to like his brother-in-law, and his son though?
They were supposed to have.
Yeah.
But because of that earlier agreement, he had no legal recourse to actually give them the shares. That's what the whole battle with Stephen was because, Bob put that in his will. Yes, the shares are going to him. But the Kowalskis were like, hey, but what about this agreement from 15 years ago that says
The actual contract.
the actual
doesn't have any,
contract
like,
isn't
that's
there's no like what if you die along the way.
right?
Can I say what I think the sketchiest thing they did though?
What's that?
Not come out about his death.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah,
like
that's
when
weird.
I felt like I had a
that
Mandela
was
effect
pretty-
on that one
pretty
because it's like,
shitty.
wait, Bob Ross died in '95. I felt like he died in like 2005. What happened?
yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the wrong timeline.
Probably.
We all because of that fucking gorilla.
No, sir, not Harambe.
But I
It was
see-
all because of him. We murdered him, and then it put us in another reality.
Zach. So,
Oh my God.
question: when do you think Wilford Brimley died?
I want to say he's not dead.
It was recent.
No, it wasn't.
It was very recent,
It was
but
like
I thought it was like
2019.
the
I thought it was like
2000.
2002.
Yeah.
Did he die from COVID?
Diabetes.
I don't know.
You know the worst thing is, how old was he during the filming of the thing?
He was probably like 31 years old.
I'm gonna take a guess and say he was 29.
He was not 29, dude. He looked like he was fucking 50.
So the woman from
Yeah, but
Mama's
it's like
family, the woman from Mama's family was like 30, and she
I
played
don't
a
know what
woman-
that is.
Okay,
This is
Mama's
70s 20.
Are you serious?
70s 20.
Mama's family.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
How old was Wilford Brimley?
Around 50
No, he wasn't.
during the thing.
So wait,
Yeah.
thing was in 82, so he died in the 70s.
Yeah. Which he.
Hey, 82 is when I was born. He died 37 years after that.
I'm telling you, he is a time-space jumper. That's how you know what timeline you're on, is when Wilford
Yeah.
Brimley died.
Wilford Brimley, born 1934,
Oh shit,
died 2020.
I like to call it the Dinty Moore effect.
he died 2020.
Yeah.
All right.
Damn.
Well, we're getting off track here. Back to the Bob Ross
Fuck.
documentary.
But the only reason that I brought that up, and just on a quick side note again, is because he was the same age in the thing as Paul Rudd is now.
Paul Rudd is part elf. He's not of this
Paul
world.
Rudd is in his 50s.
Yes.
That's pretty wild.
That's why I just had to blow your mind for a quick
He still
second
looks
there.
the same as he did like when he
And
started. his
Clueless.
career. Yeah.
It's the cabal. We have a cabal.
Yep.
And the celebrities are
Baby's
are-
blood.
are drinking our children's blood,
Yeah.
and this is why they look like they haven't aged, and I look like
Fucking Democrats.
and I look like I'm 45. The fucking
All the actors and celebrities are Democrats.
liberals.
All right. So, who are these people? This is
The Bee Gees.
yeah. Fucking
Hull and
Going off
Oates.
the rails fast.
yeah. We are.
I'm painting it live. I'm painting it live. Huh?
Well, I recognize Steven and Bob, obviously, but
And
the other
Simon.
guy is
Simon and Garfunkel.
That the other guy's
That's
his
Filbert
half
number
brother.
9.
yeah,
Is his
Yeah.
half brother.
his half brother.
We're
the
not
older
calling
brother.
out.
So part of the thing in this documentary is like his half brother kind of fucks Steven over.
But not knowing he did it.
Yeah, like he
Was
was
it-
getting sued by the Kowalskis or something, and then just kind of signed a paper to make it go away.
Yeah.
And that basically fucks Steven out of any recourse for his father's artwork.
Yes.
Through that whole thing,
I agree
always
with
thought
you.
It was Bob Ross's half brother, not Steve's half
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah, Bob Ross. But he accidentally fucked him over. not knowing what he did. And that's why there was that lawsuit at the end where they were both in deposition. And his half brother was like,
So he just signed a paper to make something go away.
because he thought he was in a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And didn't realize they can fight. And then they lost they lost the lawsuit and they couldn't do the appeal because the lawyer was like, if you do the appeal, it's a guarantee that we'll be able to open this back up and freeze all the sales. But then what happened was they needed like $90,000 and they couldn't come up with the money.
They couldn't afford the legal fees.
So you thought this entire time that it was Bob Ross's stepbrother?
Half-brother.
Okay. With all this whole who fucked who situation, it could have been. I'm not going to come out and say that it's definitely his kid, but he did have an older kid than Steven.
He did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Steven is definitely his son.
Right.
You could see it in the nose.
Yeah.
Question.
I mean, they all look like Bob.
It's just a question, is that his son brother?
Do you think you could pull off a hairstyle like his half brother or his son right now? Like that's like a late '80s, early '90s hairstyle. Think you could pull it off right now?
I think you could bring it back if you tried hard enough.
I'll do it.
I feel like that's a straight up go to a mall hairdresser and point it out on a wall hairstyle.
That's what I
I'll
want.
get Face to do it.
What do they call the pitchers in the MLB that come in just for like the ninth inning? Relief pitchers?
Relief
Is that what
pitchers,
they are?
yeah.
Wild thing.
Fucking Charlie Sheen.
The mustaches are coming back hardcore. These mustaches that they have.
If there was a movie coming out about these guys, who would play them?
Ooh.
Will Ferrell as Bob.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure, Will Ferrell is Bob.
I would have gone Megan Thee Stallion.
I would say John C. Reilly as his son.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, Dad, I don't want your life. God.
I feel
That
like,
would make for a good movie. You got
That would, because they're the same age, so it's really
It'd be
quite-
Step Brothers Part
And I
2.
feel
That's
like-
what it would be.
the
father and
half
son.
brother has a touch of Elijah Wood in his face, so that would be great.
Yes, he does.
But it's also a question whether Elijah Wood is John C. Reilly's brother or uncle.
Yes.
Like it's never
Would-
fully explained.
It's never
like
explained.
Sometimes he calls him uncle, sometimes he doesn't.
Maybe Betty White as the female co
Yes.
Oh,
playing,
God.
and she could play the younger. She's still playing the
yeah,
younger
she's
one.
playing them
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
the years.
She's like herself throughout the whole fucking... She doesn't age.
Who's Vivian then?
Oh.
I feel like Betty White would make a good
She might make a good.
She should just play both.
Both.
No, because of Vivian's hair, I want to say Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
nice.
She's just like, I'm Vivian Ross, and then you don't see her.
Yeah,
again.
that's all she says. And then she gets no more airtime.
Just her tits and then just leaves.
Patton Oswalt as Wilhelm Alexander.
He would be great as that role.
He would.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
He has a hilarious stand-up bit about him if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I watched it with him earlier today. That's funny.
Fantastic.
About Bob Ross.
Yeah.
No, about Willem, specifically about Wilhelm
Oh, okay.
Alexander.
Patton does?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, who were the painting? Remember the flower painters? They were like, yo, we
they're
were doing
my
this shit in the
favorite.
80s, but we were fucking painting flowers.
They were
and then
great.
that bitch, Annette Homewrecker.
Yeah, they were pissed, and they definitely looked like they did some weird swinger stuff,
They
like
did.
with the drapes.
Yeah,
and the
what
rope.
was their name? Names?
Fucking forget.
The flower
Oh, man.
people. We'll just go by flower people. They were great.
There's so many people in this
I
documentary.
mean, it's also, sadly, when you actually look at their paintings, they're actually awesome
Yeah, they
paintings.
are.
Yeah.
But I love when they
But
film
wet
those
onto
people.
wet and wet alla prima flowers versus landscape.
I love those when they film those people in their studio. It still looks like the 1960s. In
'Cause
that scene.
do you think they're doing weird stuff in there?
Oh, they're doing weird stuff.
I love that bit where
They're
the
doing
guy
like
was
weird Cinemax painting porn.
Yeah.
A lot of hair.
Yeah.
A lot of fucking chest hair.
Aquanet.
Ah. Gross.
Tease that hair. Tease it.
Chest hair.
I love
tease
how
the
that
chest hair.
bit where he's like, "Hey, they asked behind the air like the question to him. They're like, "Hey, do you think Ross was like fucking around?" He's like, "Hey, man, it was the '70s. Everybody," and the wife was like,
It was the 80s.
We had a fucking TV show at that time." He's like, "Yeah, who cares? It was the '80s. Everybody was fucking each other. You know what I mean?"
I love
It's like, wait. How many decades of debauchery did you have?
all of them. It's literally.
He forgot.
It's every decade. I love how even when in the TV show The Office, when Creed talks about the 60s, 70s, and 80s, he's like, they ask him if he ever had sex with a man. He's like, hey, it was a weird time back then. You know, he was, you know, it was a lot of having sex in the mud. You know, a dick might have slipped in. Like, like what?
Dude, have you seen pictures of Creed back then?
Yeah.
He was in a band.
Yeah, he was in the Eagles. It was I think he toured with. No, Cream. It was Cream. He toured with Cream.
Yeah, the actual guy who plays him is not an actor. They actually got a musician to play.
He's playing himself.
Yeah, to play himself.
It just says Creed as Creed
Yeah.
on the title card.
Do you think he ever played with Creed?
Oh,
yeah.
God.
It was the 60s, man. Weird stuff was going everywhere.
Oh, man.
Okay, so
Seriously.
what were the names again? The flower painter people? Do we
Flower painter
remember?
peeper. No.
Peeper.
I'll look it up.
Peeper. Flower painter peeper.
Reggie and I have been workshopping a script for like a best in show type movie about craft shows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like there
So-
was a lot of them back in this time period.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to start our own craft show?
No.
No.
I just want to write the script.
Yeah.
Write the script and I'll be the...
A lot of disco going on in the background. Like, oh, when Bob would walk into a room, everyone would just light up. And then disco and like, hey.
Just straight
classic Will
bass.
Ferrell.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of women in like macrame vests.
Will you write the script and I'll be the person on camera doing just craft.
Well, it's a craft show, so it's going to be filled with craft people.
Like me teaching a craft class.
Yeah.
But like we advertise like one of the sip and paints where we get a whole bunch of old ladies to come in.
I'm going to have to pull it up on Netflix.
It's me, just drunk ass
don't even
me
bother.
trying to teach the class.
We'll just refer to them as the flower painters,
The Flower Children.
who also had a TV show.
And books.
And I believe
paint.
at some point, Annette Kowalski also ripped them off.
Stroke.
Yes, she
for
completely
stroke.
copied that woman's painting book.
Annette's
Yeah,
part of the Bob Ross Inc. The joy
Bless you.
of painting flowers.
it's true.
Oh, you bitch.
It is worth mentioning, though, that those two no longer run Bob Ross Incorporated. They have retired from that. So I think their daughter has
yeah, their
something to do
daughter.
with it. And
Their
there's like a
daughter's the
whole other
president.
staff of people. Like it's the staff of people that are in that Vice thing, the Vice report from a couple of years ago.
I
which is
kind of
on
wish
Netflix.
that they did an interview with the daughter, and then she shows up and she has an afro, and they're like, "Oh, it's actually Bob's child."
It's Bob's love child.
Dude, like,
Hi, everyone. Would you like to make this happy little documentary?
have you guys watched that Vice thing since this documentary came out?
No.
If you go look at the YouTube comments from that video now,
Oh.
it's rough, dude. People are not a fan.
Wow.
Everybody
But
loves
it's
Bob Ross.
Well, when that came out, it seemed like they were just, very happy people like to be continuing Bob Ross's legacy.
Yeah.
And then this documentary comes out, and they're the fucking worst people on earth.
So, what you actually said before, we were going to come back around to it. That's what the documentary is about, is where are his paintings now?
Yeah, where are they?
We didn't actually talk about that, but it was
Yeah,
it wasn't
and that-
Vice, it was
and
New York Times.
This would be a good way to
Vice-
finish
yeah,
it,
yeah,
too.
yeah. Okay.
This would be a good way to finish the podcast, too. Like, what the value? Like, let's talk about value.
So right now there's only a few that have ever sold, and they were like private sales without any value
Okay.
attributed to it. But the problem is that the Bob Ross company owns all of those paintings.
Yeah, but what about, for example, the paintings that his son has on the tin that he used to paint
Dude,
in the
the
Navy?
thing is, though, Bob Ross never wanted to sell any of his
Yeah.
paintings.
Right.
He donated
Like-
a lot to like charities and
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you can't deny that, 50 years are going to go by. We're all going to be geriatrics. And someone's going to sell a Bob Ross painting at that point. And, like, what do you think the value of these Bob Ross paintings is going to go? Because there's so many of them.
Depends.
Right,
Is
but
it the crypto version or the
my
real
fuck.
version?
the NFT, Bob Ross NFTs.
And we're in retirement then, so how many bottles of like
The
prune
joy
juice?
of crypto.
juice.
It's all the crypto versions.
The
of
issue,
Bob Ross.
the issue is that like out of let's say 10,000 out of
Right.
the 10,000 paintings, the company owns 9,900.
Right.
There are so few like actual attributed original Bob Rosses out in the wild.
Yeah.
That you don't even know if you fully own one, because at one point they were just signing his name.
Yeah,
to
we-
Yeah,
paintings.
like anybody can paint in that style and basically sign Ross on there.
And then his
then-
books show his signature, so it's
Okay.
not hard
Yeah.
to forge.
Yes, but let's say there is a piece that was documented that he gave away to somebody. during a paint and sip or whatever.
Yep.
At something, there has to have been
An
something.
organization he cared about, like the Bird Watchers of Alaska.
Right.
Yeah.
There has to be someone out there that has a verified. I have this on video. He painted it. I have it on video. He handed it to me. This is an actual thing. Like,
How much do you think it would go for?
Well, how much do you think? Just give me a ballpark. What do you think? 50,000?
Probably more.
100,000?
Probably, I would
Probably
say
like $1 million.
You think
I would say.
yeah,
I think
you're
maybe.
right.
I don't know. There's so many of them to where like the scarcity thing kind of comes into effect.
I feel
there's
like
a
if
lot.
Bob Ross's hit the market, they'd probably start high and then like
And then
Yeah.
taper.
Yeah.
Well, because
See-
Kowalski could
it's not.
dictate. They could dictate the market, and they
Right.
can all of a sudden see, oh my God, this
like,
piece
hey,
went
we're
for $2 million,
releasing 10 paintings at a time.
and each painting is going for $100,000.
Yeah. Or they
Yeah.
could do, oh, this painting sold for $1 million. Well, guess what? I got 9,500 of them. Give me $95 million.
Right.
They would not hold their value at that point, though.
No,
I think.
but they would do it. They would.
Especially if there's multiples of the same kind of landscape that were painted for one episode of
Yeah.
The Joy of Painting.
Not to mention, if 100 years go by.
This was the one that almost makes it like a pop art sort of thing, where it's like this is the one that actually appeared on air.
Yeah,
Right.
that,
Where
that
it's like,
one's more
oh,
valuable than the
yeah.
other two. That
Those
were
are the
painted.
studies, but this is
Could-
the one that
Yeah.
actually he
could
did on TV.
Bob Ross paintings break NFTs?
Could they break it?
Yeah, because they could they become something that's more like. And I'm saying this with a tongue-in-cheek thing. So when the Winklevoss twins upload 10 pieces, right, and they're the same pieces over and over again, they go for 50, 60,000. Could Bob Ross be the one that like, okay, we're releasing 10 paintings from the Kowalski thing, and each one of these are going for $100,000, and it's a physical copy? Could that be the thing that like starts bringing people back around in 50 years from now?
Maybe. I mean, if you gave them the physical copy with the NFT token,
Ooh.
maybe.
Yeah, there
That
you
would
go.
be sweet.
But
This
as
is
far
also-
as like selling as much as other NFTs, I don't think so, because the shit that people buy for NFTs now, like all those CryptoPunk things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're like fucking 16-bit images that people are spending like millions of dollars on. I don't get it.
The other question is that, once you've reached that level of notoriety or you have that many paintings attributed to your name and it's questionable, like there's only one, maybe two people alive who can verify supposedly. I also don't know if any collectors would actually fork over that much money to be like, I own a
mean-
Bob Ross. People will do it with like a Leonardo da Vinci, like the Salvador Mundi.
That's
But
what
I
I was
don't-
about to say, that you can't prove that was a Da Vinci, but people
Right,
still spend
yeah.
money on it.
Right, because
Yeah,
they-
but it was some Saudi prince with $450 million.
right, and they want to be able to brag, I own an original Leonardo
But-
da Vinci.
Right.
It's not the same level of
Because-
brag that I own an original Bob Ross.
But again,
But there's video proof of it, so you can do
Yeah.
a frame by frame to see
There's more
which
proof
ones
of
are the
that than that
original.
Salvatore Mundi is.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
Because what we're talking about now is what you're talking about is somebody, this is a painting or a piece done hundreds of years ago. We can't say that about Bob Ross until like 2500
Yeah.
BC. I'm like, oh shit, I got an original Bob
AD.
Ross.
Yeah,
AD.
Unless
AD.
you are
Sorry.
Wilford Brimley and you go back
Time
in time.
traveler.
And you go back in time. Fuck.
We're not asking the important questions. What did the Kowalskis do with his chipmunk when he died? Allegedly, they might have turned him into paintbrushes. I'm saying.
Quite possible. It might be a
dinner.
a very
He
rare
was a nice
sable
sable
hair
brush that somebody fucking painted something
Fuck.
with.
That's terrible.
This is my old friend Nutty. I call him that because I like to feed him nuts.
I turned him into a paintbrush and then I painted a dick.
This is Peapod.
Peepaw.
So what do you think is more valuable, the name of the brand or the actual pieces?
Now the name. That's
Yeah, the
name
brand
right now.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's what the whole lawsuit is about. Is just the proceeds from his name.
I don't even think that Steven is suing for that. I think he's literally just suing to get his name back so he can then go on and
Well,
do
according
stuff.
to the statement from Bob Ross Incorporated, though, he's never had an issue with that. He can still
Yeah.
be himself and just paint.
But the
like
question is,
Stephen
can
Ross.
he
I
say?
think what happened was he was trying to, because at some point they changed the recipe of what Bob Ross paints were with the Bob Ross Paint Company. The original company dropped the Kowalskis and was going to do
Weber paints, right?
Weber
Weber.
with Steve, and he wasn't allowed to,
Right.
because they owned the Ross name.
Well, that makes sense if it was the same company
Could
that was making the paint.
but this thing, could Steve Ross go to Vegas right? And Vegas is like, yeah, you can do a bunch of paint and sips in this casino. And he's like, this is Bob, the son of Bob Ross. And then he's there with a bunch of geriatrics painting. And then all of a sudden he gets big and he has like the happiness
Caesar
of painting.
brand.
Yeah, Caesar brand paints. Can he do that? Saying, I'm Stephen Ross.
I think
Probably
he can.
because it's
Stephen fucking Ross.
He's like a comeback story.
You fucking understand.
Ooh, wait.
Stephen fucking Ross.
So, part 2 of the Bob Ross movie, adult Stephen Ross, played by Nicolas Cage, going full Nick Cage.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Take my money. Take it.
I'm not a mistake.
Hollywood, get a hold of us. We have some good ideas for casting.
We do. Trademark.
Trademark.
A couple $50 ideas.
Well, we put Megan Thee Stallion in that movie. We're making a fuck ton of money.
Now it's a $49 idea.
Well, she's got vibranium knees.
Is she the third wife?
She's the first wife.
She's also a time traveler.
Wait, you give her that blonde honeycomb wig?
Oh,
Like,
There is no way Bob Ross would have cheated on Megan Thee Stallion.
no
I'm Vicky
way.
Ross.
That's why
That'd be a hilarious behind the scenes scene.
or
Don't tell me
no.
you ain't going around fucking white women again.
Wait, no. Megan
She like just punches them.
That's why he has an afro, because he's into black chicks. That's what it is.
Hollywood, get at us. This is great. This-
Got it. Megan Thee Stallion plays.
He's a Florida man.
Megan Thee Stallion plays his second wife, Jane, and Steve's also into that, so that's why he goes and lives with her instead of Vivian.
He loves that.
The script writes itself.
He has a crush on his stepmom.
Trademark.
To get back at the Kowalskis, he throws an alligator in their front door and he yells, Florida man!
All right, guys.
All right.
Final question.
Party, drink, or do drugs?
Well,
Second to last
question.
The penultimate question.
Like, having watched the documentary, and I don't know if you guys read the statement thing that the company put out. Like, do you think that the documentary is a bit skewed in one direction?
Yes.
Probably for views. That's probably why his first wife has only her name as a statement, because otherwise
Should be talking
they
shit.
cut all that shit out.
He was out all night.
they'd question his character.
But like,
Marijuana.
it's very much Steve Ross's documentary, I would
Yeah.
say. Like his claims regarding all these
Well,
matters.
I think from his perspective, he's right. From his perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's his dad.
Well, and,
Yes.
and that's why I wanted to bring up. I was like, when I mentioned it earlier, legally, the Kowalskis did nothing wrong. It's
Yes.
morally,
They did something wrong.
But there's
Morally.
also
yeah,
other
they covered
people
up
that
his
were
death. Like, they
Right.
obviously had
But
a weird.
legally, they did absolutely nothing wrong in this situation.
I agree.
They followed their contract. He agreed to this contract. It was a bad
It's-
business decision on him in 1981 when he didn't know any better. To
Yeah.
Ooh, do
Yeah.
you think she like catfished him by being like, "You remind me of my son"?
Yes.
Guilt
oh yeah, because
trips
they had a kid that died,
that
right?
died.
And that's
Yes.
why they kind of picked him up.
Yeah.
they did pick him up.
But to answer your question, I would do all three with Bob Ross.
You would party with Bob Ross all the way.
All the way.
Good.
Would you get matching gold chains?
Fuck.
Dude,
Yeah.
I would eat a giant bag of mushrooms with Bob Ross, and it would be
Yes.
the
I would-
best fucking thing.
I
He
would
would calm me down.
I would.
He'd probably
Josh, would
take
you
you
get
out in the
matching
woods.
afros with Bob Ross?
I would. I would get matching afros.
you
with
I would
Bob
get a
Ross.
real perm and rock that Versace.
Could you
chain.
imagine like going in the woods with Bob Ross and him being like, "Oh, that's a northern outback chipmunk. Those little motherfuckers like chestnuts." And then like you're like, "No." It's like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "Man, I love the fucking woods and shit." You know? It's like, what? It's like, "Wait, hold on, don't touch that, homie. You get blashed
We-
from that."
I don't know if I would go into the woods because the entire time I feel like he'd be tripping, just touching the tree, going "Happy tree."
We need
Just
to
petting
100% tag Steven in this. And then see if
I'm
he'll
sure
come
he's
up.
gonna love all the shit we're talking about.
Well, we
his
love
dad.
it. We love his dad. Are you serious? We should tag him and say, "Hey, you should come up to New York."
Okay.
Come do it. Come do a painting demo.
You could do a painting demo in the brewery, and then do some shit over here in the tattoo place. Someone would get a tattoo of Steven's art. Bam would.
Done.
Right now, we would treat him like a king.
I would get a tattoo of Steven's mullet.
Steven, we would put you up in a average hotel.
The best Red Roof Inn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
The best
Automatic
rated
goodbye.
Hotel 6 in the area.
No, not that. We would put him in the Parkway on like
Yeah.
the Hilton on the Parkway.
Uh-huh.
$136 a night.
That's nice.
Continental breakfast.
Not
He knows.
I'll let you borrow my Netflix password.
Yeah.
So you can watch the documentary that
We'll give you an
star it.
We'll
Not-
give you an Uber budget
Not.
because nobody's driving you
Yeah,
around.
and because we're not doing it.
We'll
No,
get you some
not
meal
during-
vouchers for
meal voucher. Not during
barbecue.
Yeah, not during peak BU hours.
10
For
meals.
barbecue, for 10
barbecue.
meals for barbecue.
10 meals for barbecue. You come up here, we'll treat you like
a king.
like an average man, having a nice a nice weekend, a weekend retreat up in upstate New York in Binghamton, and you'll have a decent time. Not
God,
a great
that's
time.
the last place I'd want to go for a retreat.
Yeah, but we would
Hey,
treat
you
him
can
like
see
an
the-
average man.
The leaves change.
The foliage.
We'll buy him a carton of cigarettes. Throw that in there too.
Okay.
Does he smoke?
He was smoking through the whole thing.
We'll hook him up with some weed.
He was smoking
Okay.
cigarettes.
I mean, not mine, but okay.
Reggie all of a sudden's like, I have something to
I
tell
don't
you
want to
guys.
share.
My last
with
name
him.
is Ross.
I don't want to share with him. Do you think that bit where he was like, oh, and then I heard my dad yelling from the other room, like, it's my name! It's my fucking name! Do you think that was true?
So, so let's go back to the party, drink with, do drugs with thing. So let's talk about the other people. So you would do that with Bob. What about his son?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what about the?
I don't know.
Kowalskis?
I feel like
Would you
like
offer
Steven's
up
kind of
a
a
date
downer.
with your aunt to Steven?
Steven's not he's not an ant fucker. Steven is not an ant fucker. He doesn't have that vibe. Bob Ross has the vibe. The other guy that we have coming into the brewery, he has that vibe. Steven has the vibe of I just wish my dad was alive. And it's a sad vibe.
Sad.
Like Bob Ross though, he's banging moms. He's doing it regularly.
Bob Ross
On
Banks.
the reg. Tame and strange
This
on
is
the reg.
this is my last
How many lunches do you think he made for someone else's child?
Oh.
Like before he left, he was just like, "Let me make you peanut butter." And
Or do you
jelly."
think he made like a baller and ate him? He's like, oh yeah, by the way, bitch, your kid needs a new apple juice. Yeah.
Made it in front
No,
of him.
no, that wasn't Bob Ross. My thing was, I think Bob Ross. Actually, I shouldn't go into that. It's way not. All right, fuck.
Guys, we are
He-
just shitting on the memory
We
of
are
Bob
not
Ross
shitting on the
right
memory of
now.
Bob Ross.
We
Bob
are
Ross,
making him sound
We've been doing
like
it
a
for an
pimp.
hour.
badass.
We're building his legend. It's a mythos that surrounds our
All right.
pop stars.
Bob Ross is
Let-
my childhood painting hero, and he just got so much cooler.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
He did a lot of like help with urban areas and painting in urban areas. Do you think he had a taste for?
Oh.
For Megan the Stallion. All right, guys.
All right, that's it. We're the
He had a real
first-
taste of grape juice.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
That
Go watch this documentary and make your own decisions about what
Oh,
you
I'm so-
think.
best episode ever.
Hey Maggie, I'm sorry I ate that bag of food that said Billy on it. I did not realize. You may need to make your kid lunch.
Did we ever
again.
come to a consensus like documentary company somewhere in between?
I feel like it's somewhere in between
Yeah,
because
it's-
there's other people that were like, they're kind of shitty people.
I would say they're shitty people morally. I don't think legally they really.
Yeah.
At least the OG Kowalskis.
Yeah, I
maybe not
can't-
the people that are running the company.
I can't
now.
say now, but yeah, the original people were just shitty people who
Yeah, they probably tried to Hollywood him out of his name.
who knew how to take advantage of.
She was
Of
probably
somebody.
like, you remind me of my son. Here's a cocaine budget. I made you some peanut butter and jelly.
Here's a handy for the road.
All right. Well, that's
All right,
it.
we're out. I gotta pee.
Yes.
Later.
Damaged by you, damaged by me. I confuse.
Velmer number 9.
And by